Is it working? Yes, it is. Hello, everyone. I am here for another of our scheduled lives. You voted in the Whippet Facebook group that you wanted me to talk about reactivity this week. So today I am talking reactive whippets, do's and don'ts, what we should be doing, what we shouldn't be doing. There's so much, so much misinformation out there. So as always, this will be recorded and shared afterwards, and if you want to get in touch, you can. You're always welcome to join in as well while I'm talking. That would make more sense. So you're always welcome to comment, like, and such. So today we are talking reactive dogs. We are talking reactive whippets specifically, but a lot of this will be general information for reactivity. So if you're watching this and you're wondering what is a reactive dog? What is reactivity? What is Zara going on about now? A reactive dog is basically a bit of a label we put on a group of dogs who either bark or lunge or growl or snap or, kind of behaviours we deem as problems around either other people, other dogs, or even cyclists, joggers, wildlife, and similar. So reactivity is, a relatively big umbrella of behaviours. You'll have some dogs who are reactive because they are frustrated. You'll have some dogs who are reactive because they are anxious. You'll have some dogs who are reactive because they're just a bit excited or they lack social skills. Or in my opinion, you'll get a lot of dogs that fall under the umbrella of having quite a few of those emotions. I don't believe just one emotion is at play with reactivity. I believe more often than not there's a couple of emotions. I think it would be very overly simplistic to just assume that one is at play. So very often I will see fear and frustration in the same dog. They want to get over there because they want to investigate what's going on, right? So reactive dogs are dogs who bark, they lunge, they growl, they snap at various different triggers for various reasons, various different emotional responses. So that can be applied to any breed. That's not just whippets. But why are dogs reactive? So dogs are reactive. It's always very difficult to pinpoint with each individual dog. It's always going to be really hard to go, that was the moment. This is why. Because there's often like a huge multitude of reasons as to why a dog might be reactive. One of the reasons could be that they have had a really bad experience with the thing that they are reactive to. So if they are reactive to dogs, it could be that when they were a puppy, they were pushed around at, let's say, like a puppy party, or they were just bowled over by dogs in the fields, or maybe they were even attacked. And that could be a poor experience around other dogs that results in reactive behaviour. Poor experiences can be related to other things other than dogs. It could be your puppy had a bad experience with a car, with a certain noise while they were young. I'm keeping an eye on my puppy. He was being quite happy chewing, and suddenly, he's moving the chew across the floor. That's fine. Just wondered what he'd found. It doesn't necessarily need to be other dogs, and the dog decides what the negative experience was. So it might have been no big deal to us as humans, but to our dogs, it might have been something dreadful. So it could be poor experiences. It could be genetics. Some dogs are just a little like their parents. If their parents were anxious or their parents were reactive, they are far more likely to be reactive. It's really common to see that in certain lines of dogs of different breeds. You often hear about like cocker rage in like certain lines of cockers. There's certain lines of certain breeds where genetics play a huge part. Genetics make a big difference. So if the parents were anxious, the parents were reactive, that could be one reason why your dog is reactive. What else could it be? It could be, and this one's never, to make it not feel bad, but it could be that they have experienced like a negative association with their trigger, whether it's dogs, people, cyclists. Maybe we've got cross with them, around them. Maybe we've shouted at them. Maybe we've used like collars and things they don't enjoy. Maybe they have a bad association as a result of something that has happened. So we've got why dogs might be reactive so far. They're just like a brief overview. I will say a lot of dogs are likely to become reactive during adolescence, is one thing I missed there. A lot of dogs are likely to be quite a relatively happy, sociable puppy, and then as they hit about 6 to 9 months, hello again Arkle, then they can tend to develop these reactive issues as they're hitting this second fear period, they're hitting adolescence. Things they may not have had good experiences with, or things that they have had, really bad experiences with, are far more likely to impact them. So this is often the time that you notice your whippet's behaviour change, between about 6 to 18 months usually. It's almost bang on 9 months for most of the dogs I work with, but it does vary quite hugely under that umbrella. So, reactivity do's and don'ts. I've got a list, and if you have any questions, ask away. If you want to join in with emojis, I've learned that word, finally, you can. So what I'm going to start with is what not to do, because it's easier to start with that and then give you loads of suggestions of what you can do. What I will say is everything is individual, every dog is slightly different, so it's never going to be like a simple, straightforward roadmap, as it were. So what do we not want to be doing if we have a reactive dog? What we don't want to be doing is what you might often see on TV, or you might have people suggest to you, which is that when your dog barks, or your dog lunges, or your dog growls, or your dog snaps, that you tell them off, whether that is verbally or physically. So that might be that you shout at them, I can't shout, there's a puppy here, no, or you shout, stop or leave it, or you pull on the lead, or you spray water in their face, or you use like something that is what the dog would deem aversive, something they would happily avoid. If you do these things when your dog is reactive and they react, there are two things that might happen. There are probably more, but I'm probably not going to think of them as I go. There are a couple of things that are likely to happen. If we use aversives and something is happening, there is a chance that we might be able to stop the behaviour happening. But the fallout of that is much higher. There is far more likelihood of this going really wrong, and that is that if we shout at them, or we use an aversive, or whether it's, like I say, I'll pull on the lead or a shout, even if it's just from our stress. I'm not saying everyone's doing it on purpose. Reactive dogs are stressful, but what's likely to happen is we are going to create a greater response, a greater level of reactivity towards that. Because what your dog starts to learn is that when, let's say it's dogs, just for the sake of this conversation, if my dog reacts to a dog and I say no and I pull on the lead, my dog learns that when they see a dog and they say they're uncomfortable by barking, they get more punishment. It becomes a really negative association. That dog now means that he gets told off by his owner. Let's say it's Arkle. Arkle now thinks that when he sees a dog and he barks at them, he's going to get told off by me. And that makes other dogs even more scary. It makes them even more something he would maybe want to react to. And it would also damage his relationship with me. Because when your dog is barking and lunging, they're giving you information. I say it a lot, behaviour is information. They're saying, I can't cope. I don't know how to handle this. I would like this situation to change. And if your dog is barking and lunging and you say, stop it, whatever words we're using, what our dogs learn is that, bad things happen. We are unpredictable as humans as well. We get mardy with them when they tell us how they feel, right? So if I'm punishing my dog for telling me how they feel, what else might happen from that? There's a lot of negative fallout in that we could potentially, I don't recommend it, it's a don't, we could potentially tell our dogs off when they're reacting, and they might stop. And they might stop for a few weeks. Let's say you've gone to that kind of trainer. I'm sure everyone knows the kind of trainer I may be talking about, like an old-fashioned trainer who's going to be a bit pushy with your dog. They've gone there for a few weeks, and, as an owner, you're like, oh my gosh, my dog has stopped barking, my dog has stopped lunging. They're fine with dogs now. But actually, all that's happened is your dog has stopped barking and lunging. We haven't addressed why your dog was barking and lunging. So that emotion is still simmering under the surface. We have just punished our dog telling us they don't like it. So what happens with a lot of these dogs, and I work with a lot of dogs like them in person, because there are a lot of trainers like that locally, what happens is that dog, it's simmering under the surface. They're still looking at that dog thinking, I don't like you. But the only thing that I've learned is that when I bark and lunge, I get in trouble. I get a negative association. So that's still under there. So there's a really high potential that when that dog actually gets close up, that one day, maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, maybe not next week, but one day that dog is going to lose its control, and it's going to say how it really feels and probably snap at the other dog. Maybe even more serious, because that's been pent up under the surface, so whip it on my foot, for quite some time. So punishing a dog might seem like it might work on the face of it, in that you stop it instantly, like in that moment, and it might feel like that you're stopping it, maybe even like on the face of it, your dog stopped barking for like a temporary period of time. But that's still under there. They're still anxious, and what might happen is they start reacting to other things, and they start showing other problem behaviours, because they're still, you're just going to drag it all out, Arkle. They're still reactive, they're still anxious. We've basically just taken like the batteries out of our smoke alarm. We're now saying, don't warn us you don't like that dog by barking or growling and lunging. We're just going to wait and find out. We're just going to wait and see what happens, which is a lot more difficult to deal with. So we don't want to be using aversives. We don't want to be using things that our dogs are likely to want to avoid, such as prong collars, choke chains, shot collars, spray collars, rattle cans, shouting, lead corrections, because these don't address the issue here. They don't address what's really going on. They just provide like a temporary thing. It stops them in the moment, but it's not addressing anything. And as someone who has learned this the hard way, it does make things much harder in the long run. It does make your dogs a lot more likely to react with I'm using my words, aren't I, this evening? With like volatility to situations, because that's kind of how they are treated, right? So you know, I do have a reactive whippet. He used to be very reactive to everything, and we did things the old-fashioned way to start with, and we realised really quickly that isn't the right way to do things. It made Marley much worse. Marley's the one above me. It made Marley much worse. He was much more reactive to dogs in the long run, and he started to redirect his aggression towards us as well, which had never previously been a problem. He started to realise that we were not pleasant to him when these things happened, and therefore he would have some aggression at us. Maybe not redirected in the exact moment, but like in his waking life, he did not trust us. So when it came to simple things like, oh, you finished with that tune, Marley, I'll have it back, we got a bit of a bite from Marley, because he said, I don't trust you. You're not people I can trust. I don't feel safe with you. So I'm going to have to start taking things into my own hands. Okay, lay on that Arkle. So, you know, I'm not just saying this from like, you know, a perspective of you should never do this. I also know it from the perspective of I've done this, and I know the consequences of it, and it takes years to undo that kind of thing. So what else should you not do? You should not flood your dogs. So what is flooding? Flooding is basically putting your dog in a situation and making them cope with it. Flooding is basically having your dog in a group of other dogs. That's bothering me, clearly. In a group of other dogs, and making them deal with it. So some group classes might do that. They might say to you, give me your dog, I'm going to pull on his lead, I might correct him, please don't eat that Arkle, then what's going to happen is we're just going to stay in this group for 30 minutes to an hour, or we are going to walk with this group of dogs, and what you might find is that your dog looks, again, okay, they're not reacting, they're not barking, they're not lunging, so you might feel like, you know, problem solved. But what's really going on is what we call flooding and learned helplessness. Your dog has learned they're in a situation that they can't get out of, and that the best option is to keep their head down. There are loads of situations like in life as humans that we might do that in, where we say, oh, I don't want any trouble, I'm not going, there's no way out of this, I'm just going to put my head down. And again, we're not addressing why they're responding like that. And again, they're very likely to have more intense reactions and aggression out of nowhere, because they're not going to be barking, they're not going to be lunging, but one day they're probably going to snap at and maybe go further as another, again I'm saying dog, it could be people, it could be loads of different things, comes close. So flooding is dangerous, it has bad side effects, it's not ideal in any sort of context. What else should we not do? I promise we're getting onto the stuff we can do in a minute, I promise. I don't like being bossy about telling you all what not to do. What else should we not do? We should not take our dogs on the same walk every day where we know they're going to see their trigger and react. If we take them out every day and you know that walk has hundreds of, again, dogs or people or cyclists or children or, whatever it is your dog finds suspicious. It could be anything. If you keep taking them out on those walks where you know those things are and you know your dog can't cope, practice makes perfect. They're going to get better at reacting to those things because it becomes more of a classically conditioned response. I see a dog, again I'm using dogs, I bark. I see a human, I bark. And if that keeps, please don't eat that, if that keeps happening every day, they're just going to keep doing it. Not only are they going to keep doing it, but they're in a chronic state of stress. If they're reacting to things every day, their body, their stress levels are up here, and it actually takes about 72 hours for a dog's stress levels to flush after a bad experience, up to 72 hours usually. And what that means is they're full of adrenaline, they're full of cortisol, throughout the day after a bad experience, which means they're going to be more likely to react to something. So we really don't want to be constantly putting them in these situations where they can't handle it, because that's just, nothing will ever get resolved. Nothing at all. So what do we want to do? What do we want to do? There are loads of things that we can do to help a reactive dog. As I said, I have Marley, who used to be reactive to people, dogs, cyclists, children, joggers, wheelie bins. Like if they weren't there the day before, I'm sure some of you have had that. Your dog sees something novel, just changes in his environment. Pretty much, they were pretty scary. He used to be reactive to everything. It was really hard to walk him. If he saw something 3 fields away, he would react. Whereas now, I can walk him down the street, we can see a dog across the road, and I would say 90% of the time he doesn't react. Sometimes, if it's a German Shepherd or a Labrador, he does not like them. No offence to everyone, he just has had that many bad experiences, he does not like them. But even then, he's very manageable. I can walk him past people now, happily, he can engage with new people. I mean, he still looks to me, because of the training that I'm about to talk to you, when he sees a cyclist, they used to be his least favourite things. Now he just sees a cyclist and looks to me and goes, "Come on, Mum, get on with it. Where's my food?" I'm like, "Oh, okay. You know the game better than me sometimes." He's got better at telling me when to feed him than anything. So we had Molly. I had a reactive Jack Russell as well. Womble was a different kettle of fish. He would take things a good step with other dogs, unfortunately, being a terrier. And then I had Arthur, who was a young whippet. He would get very stalky, like a collie. He would stalk dogs and then lay down. And as he got older, that kind of progressed into being very confrontational is the word I'm looking for. He could be a bit like, "You want a piece of me?" to random dogs, and they'd be terrified. If you're wondering what I'm doing, Puppy's laying on his bed, and every now and then I'm just throwing food so he stays there. I should explain these things, shouldn't I? So what can we do? What do we want to do? What are the things that you should be doing? Okay, so I've got a list. If you have any questions as well, I don't know where the comment thing is on your thing, comment. You're welcome to, questions, anything. So what do we want to do? Just to start with, we want to do management. We want to try and avoid putting our dogs in situations they can't handle, just for a little while. So that might mean walking your dog at a different time to avoid the trigger. It might mean going out in the car to somewhere quiet. Check out my post on freedom walks if you want some ideas on that. It should be in the Whippet group under the lives post. But we want to be just avoiding triggers temporarily. It's not a long-term solution. You might have been to a trainer and they've said just avoid stuff, and that's a good short-term management tool, but we need to then do the other stuff with it. We've got loads of stuff we need to do with that. The reason that we're doing that is so they don't rehearse the wrong behaviours and that they are not stressed day to day. And it's always about looking at the long game with reactive dogs. Nothing is going to be achieved within a week. Sorry, nothing's going to be achieved within 2 weeks, in all likelihood. We're looking at a long game. It pays off. This dog took me probably about 6 to 12 months, and he'd had a horrible history. And he's pretty much all right at the minute. So I know management's frustrating. I know it drives everyone insane. But if you don't do the management, you might as well not do the rest of it. Because it's the same as saying, I'm going on a diet, but I'm also going to have cake every day. mainly as a meal. You can't do both. You can't say, I'm trying to stop you barking at dogs, but here's a load of dogs to bark at, if that makes sense to everyone. So we want to manage just short term, just temporarily, where at the distance our dog can't cope. I think that's a really important part. They can see stuff at the distance they can cope, because the next part is find that distance where your dog can cope. There will be a distance. It might feel like it might not feel like it, but whether that is 2 fields away, 3 fields away, like with Marley, whether it's just across the road or a wider road, there will be a distance your dog can cope with the stuff that they're worried about or reactive about. And that is the distance we want to work at. That is the distance where we want to be saying, that thing, food, 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 food. That thing equals good things. That thing equals, good puppy, that thing equals good associations. So when you see that thing, while we're in the threshold is what we call it, at the distance we can cope, I'm going to feed you, I am going to reward you. You're making good choices, we're creating a positive association. That is what we want to do. There will be a distance where your dog can cope with their triggers. That is the distance we have to work at. We cannot work when your dog is over threshold, which is barking, lunging, growling. For some of your dogs, it might be as simple as they usually can take food, but they can't anymore in the presence of their trigger. That is over threshold. We want to work under that, because that is a point with which our dogs can learn. Our dogs can't learn when they're in high emotional states, when they're in fight or flight. So there will be a distance, I promise, whether it's miles away, but there will be a distance they can work. And that is a distance we want to work at. And that is a distance where we are going to take out our bestest treats in the whole world, like the best. You don't want to be stingy when we're doing behaviour modification. And again, this is a really rough guide, and your individual dogs will vary. So this is just a really vague, like, do's and don'ts, but this is the vaguest form. Here's dog. This is a distance you can cope. Big chunk of chicken, big, half a cocktail sausage, have all the best associations. Don't need to be there long, 2 minutes, super, let's go. Let's leave before anything bad happens. Big mistake people often make is they try and make it a long, prolonged exposure. It does not need to be. Short, sweet, big positive associations will go much further than prolonged exposures where things might go wrong. I know this. I walked Molly a lot. I definitely am a kind of person who naturally tries to push things. I'm like, just a few more minutes watching that German Shepherd across the field. We pushed it too far. The German Shepherd would now like to run at us. That has now ended in disaster. We don't want that. We're going to take short, quick associations, powerful associations, and leave. Whether that's taking you out in the car, sitting with you in the boot of the car, watching dogs across the car park. Again, I keep using dogs. It could be people. It could be anything you like. It could literally be whatever you fancy. The hair is not going to do what I want. It just nags at me. So behaviour modification is like the key thing that we're going to do, but we have to do it at a distance our dog can cope. And to start with, you're going to think, how am I meant to do this? This is insane. Once you get into the rhythm of it, it doesn't need to be every day. That's one thing I'll say. It doesn't need to be every day. It can be once a week. If you're doing your other walks as management walks, doesn't matter. Once a week, twice a week. It depends on your schedule. It depends on what your dog can handle. It depends on... Oh, please don't eat that. Why are puppies so fun? One moment. Please don't eat that. I'd rather you didn't eat that. Well, it survived. It's my little wristy watch step counter, pedometer thing. I'd rather he didn't eat it. Just a preference. So that's, we want to work them at that distance, and it might be tricky, and we might have moments where we're thinking, how am I meant to do this? It doesn't need to be every day. It doesn't need to be hard work as such. I think that's the biggest problem we have, or we can see with reactivity, is we see it as, must be every day, we must go and do this, we must go and do that. There are no rules. As long as you're doing things vaguely right, go at the pace you and your dog want to go. If you don't want to rush things, don't rush things. If you want to do things at a good pace, you can do things at a good pace. But you can only ever go at your dog's pace. That's the other thing. So we want to create positive associations. Why do we want to do this? Well, what happens eventually is your dog will stop learning to bark at things because we're not allowing them to rehearse that. Practice makes perfect. If a behaviour isn't being done, it gets weaker. So they stop barking at things, and they're getting a new association of food from human. What happens is, a bit like I said earlier, when they get good at this, they're going to start to see a trigger And over time, I'm not talking weeks, maybe months, maybe even a little bit longer, depending on your dog, depending on your time, your dog is going to notice their trigger and look to you. They're going to look to you because they're going, where's the chicken, mum? Or the, whatever you use. Where is it? I'd like it, please. Because they know that thing predicts food from us. So I no longer have to reward Marley just for noticing things. I can just wait for him to check in with me on a lot of his triggers. So like I say, cyclists were a big problem for him, because where we live, I can say this because I cycle as well, but where we live, a lot of people are very frustrating, and they spent a lot of time cycling up Marley's backside as a puppy on the path. Didn't like it, funnily enough. Hey, who knew? Who knew dogs wouldn't like that? And it became a really big problem because people near me seem to cycle everywhere on the path. These days, there's a cyclist. I mean, literally earlier, he looked at a cyclist and went, like, glaring at me, where is my food? And I waited past and he got his food. Do I still pay him? Probably. He's nearly 11. He's slightly blind in one eye. But I don't want him to have stressful walks. So it's just really easy to take one of my treats. I have treats with me a lot and give it to him. So what to do? We can manage. We want to manage. That's a key component. We want to do behaviour modification, which is setting them up at the distance they can cope. And this is like the two main things that most places are going to tell you. But there's a couple of other things I think you should do, personally. And I think we need to look at a lot of different aspects of your dog and why they're reactive. We want to look at what might be causing them, maybe it's bad experiences, but why are they so reactive to these situations? Are they chronically stressed? Are they having a stressful day-to-day on their walks? That's not so good. That's not going to help. Are they pessimistic? Do they fear the worst in loads of situations? Do they lack confidence? A dog who lacks confidence is going to be more reactive because they're seeing that, person minding their own business and thinking, that person's going to get me. That person's going to get me. And you tend to find that dogs, not always again, but generally, who are reactive, they tend to be a bit pessimistic and they tend to be a bit anxious. So we also want to do confidence building. We want to do loads of confidence building. Confidence building is relatively straightforward once we get the hang of it. I've got a lot of cases at the minute with Wagging Wonders, my in-person business, where I'm working with anxious or reactive puppies who just need some confidence building, and we're doing lots of games such as finding treats out of different objects. One of the puppies I'm working with at the minute, they've just he's gone from being quite scared at the sight of these boxes to putting his front feet in the boxes and now putting his whole body in the boxes, which is amazing because he's really cautious about things like that. As a reactive dog, he's quite pessimistic, and all we've done is had some food in it, we've had food around it, and he's had the choice to do it. Low pressure. Low pressure is so important. I'm going off on a tangent now for sighthounds. We don't want them to feel pressured. I don't know about you, but a lot of my sighthounds do not do well with pressure training, like, do this, do that, this is how it's going to go, you must do it, otherwise we're not doing anything else. I like them to think it's their idea. I like them to think it's their training and that they have a good level of control because it makes them feel more confident. So I've got a confidence boost with my games called Serving Up Optimism, which I will pop in the group. Really simple. Do it for meals. It's really straightforward once they get the hang of it. We want to also think about, maybe does that dog struggle with like disengagement? Do they struggle to come away from things? Do they struggle to let things go, is the phrase I'm looking at. Arthur, my last dog, he was really bad at letting things go, basically. An experience would sort of be in his head for quite some time. It could be that I've left the house, he had separation issues. It could be that there was another dog, he wants to fixate and stare at them. And, a dog who struggles with disengagement is going to struggle with reactivity because they're going to be like, fixed to it. We want them to be like, it's no big deal. So we're going to work on disengagement as a concept. We're going to work on them learning, self-control, maybe with food, disengaging from situations with training games. There's loads and loads of ways that we can address this with key concepts too. I wouldn't just do the management and behaviour mod. All of my in-person customers know this. I set them loads of homework on training games, of optimism boosting, on building a stronger relationship. Loads of things we want to be doing. Our dogs tend not to be like robots. Our dogs tend not to be like they have a rule book or something where they're like, oh, you have done it correctly, we must just do it this way now, it's going to work. Every dog is different, every dog's going to have different struggles, and they need like these training games to help them. And I find that, you know, since introducing that kind of thing, it definitely helps my dogs much more, and my clients' dogs more to the point. God, a puppy is being so calm here. It's such a contrast. When Arthur was this age, he was very vocal. I've not heard Arkle bark yet. He's 6 months old. Those watching, if you have had a puppy, is that weird? I feel like he should have barked or vocalised or talked to me by now. I'm finding it weird. My whippets talk to me. Arkle doesn't talk to me, but that's a different tangent. Comment if this is weird. It feels weird to me. So they're the main things we want to do. We want to do management, we want to do behaviour mould, we want to address key concepts, and we don't want to make it like drills or high pressure. We want to keep it nice and low pressure. Like I said, the short, sweet experiences. So I've talked about a lot. And I've talked for a while. And I've only moderately been, it is very weird, good. I'm really getting like, I'm even trying to like wind the puppy up, like, will you bark if I wind you up like this? If I run around, or if I... No. It's really odd. I don't know many whippets. Maybe, again, I'm weird. I don't know many whippets that don't vocalise by 6 months. Having said that, I'm probably going to live to regret that in the next month or so, and then he's going to never stop talking, and you might watch one of these in a month and be like, you kind of asked for it, Zara. Which is just the way my life goes, so I probably shouldn't say these things. So, talked about a lot of different things. We have talked about why our whippets might be reactive. It might be due to previous experiences, it might be due to genetics, it might be due to like aversive experiences through training. We talked about what not to do. He will make up for it. Yeah, I have a feeling I've made a rod for my own back there. I have a feeling he's listening and go, okay, you want me to talk, I'll talk. I really shouldn't have said I say these things and literally, usually it's days, I regret them, days later. I'll record it the first time he makes a noise. What do we not want to do? We don't want to use aversives. We don't want to flood them. We don't want to keep putting them in the situations that they can't handle. We don't want to allow them to rehearse the problematic behaviours. Do we want to do, in summary, we want to manage them, we want to set them up for success, we want to do behaviour modification, which is creating nice, good associations with their triggers, and we want to address key concepts like optimism, engagement, disengagement, focus, all sorts of things. So, that's a really quick guide. Quick, 30 minutes. Quickish. Does anyone have any questions at all? I don't think I need to do any demoing with a puppy unless anyone suggests anything relating to it. So I'll just sort of loiter around, see if anyone has any questions. I will say that I am, hopefully, I've got a lot of projects on the go. Setting up my, I don't know when. I am setting up my online classes for reactive dogs, which will cover in more detail what to do. I'll have lots of videos, lots of sheets. They're always my favourite, making videos and sheets, as well as sort of training those key concept behaviours too. They're going to be set up within the next month. That's my deadline for me. So we could, and the only joy potentially is the last year is there's loads we can do online. We've all discovered that. So if you need any help, we can do that, or I do offer one-to-one online sessions too, which can be very helpful. Super, so I can't see any questions. I hope that's all been helpful for those of you who could watch. I am doing another of these tomorrow on the Wagging Wonders page. I'm doing what to do when your dog has a fear response. So when they panic or they show a startle response, what should you do? That's going to be on Wagging Wonders at 6 p.m. tomorrow. Yeah, 6 p.m. And then on Thursday, I'm getting in a few of these this week, I'm doing another on this page, and it is adding another whippet to the household, multi-whippet household life, which I'm very used to, as I have Marley. Marley's not in the room with me, he's in a world of his own. He's nearly 11. I've got Marley, the 11-year-old, Ollie, the nearly 13-year-old. I have Arkle, 6 months old, and I also had my previous whippet, which we lost very, very recently. So we're used to multi-whippet households. They're fun. Jane says, I've been trying to get my boy not to bark at people, but he thinks if he barks, he gets a treat. Is he reactive to people? Is he excited, sorry, or is he anxious? if he barks, he gets a treat. It might just be that you need to be even a little further away, depending on the situation. Yeah, so it might be you just need to be a little further. I will try, as I should have plenty in the group, and post some more videos. Because I do have loads of videos. The problem that I've had over the last 5 years is I didn't ever think they would come in handy. So they're just sort of like dotted around my Facebook page, my Instagram, and I'm now trying to like pull them up, and the files get damaged. Ugh, it's driving me crazy. So I end up refilming a lot, but I should have a lot. Any tips on how to disengage? Stitch will just stop and stare and not move at all. Oh, okay. So that just might mean you're just sort of on the edge of his threshold. You might need to be even further away. I think if my dog is trapped in that frame of mind, I'm going to do one of two things, because this is what Arthur was like. If Arthur saw a dog, he would just stare and freeze. Sometimes he would tremble as well. You could have wafted a steak in front of his face. He was like, nope, busy at the minute. Thanks, Mum, but you're all right. I've got things to do. I probably want to, depending on how exactly they're staring, whether they're pulling into the lead, whether they're doing all sorts of other bits, I would want to, if I'm using a long line, use my movement away from them, almost into their eye line. So if I've got a dog in front of me where you are, I would almost be walking, I'm going to do it, hang on, I do these things, so I don't think they ever look very helpful. So I would almost be, you are dog, I'm going to walk behind, and just keep walking, because my movement at some point is going to catch, hang on, your eye, and then I'm going to mark and reward you for you, the dog, for noticing. And I might use like a thrown treat, because that gets them moving again. I tend to find dogs who struggle to disengage tend to be better with movement as a reward than food in position. We're often told that food in position is the best thing to do, and it absolutely can be, but I definitely found with Arthur that the best option was food that moved as a reward, because it almost redirected like his over arousal into, oh, I'm gonna chase the treat afterwards. So I would either walk around them to get them to disengage, or I would try, if they're on a long line, walking up the lead. Have I talked about walking up the lead? Probably not. It's literally just moving forward, getting a little more of the line. I'm not creating tension, it might even be a slight T-touch principle, Stolini. They're all like merged together, a load of these things. Like the slack in the lead that's created by walking up it tends to get them to like look back to you. I will do, so Susanna, another thing you could do, because I know you've done some of the training in that online class, so we did a little bit of the work. So we've done some work with food in hand and self-control. I would see if, as a concept, Stitch could have some treats under, I'm looking for objects, you can see me getting very excited. You can see when my brain works. I'm just like a whippet. I would have food under an object. I'm using a dish at the minute. I would show you with Arthur, but I don't think he's ready for this yet. We're doing confidence building more than anything. Food under an object. Can you do the self-control in the same way as food in the control in your hand? Few reps of that. Then can we do food under an object? Can you do behaviours for me? Can you look back to me, like naturally? Can I mark and reward that? Can I ask you to sit, middle, down, spin, one of the various tricks? And then I'm going to, it was an empty dish, Arkle. Then I'm going to reward you with the food that was under there. So you're learning, there is something that you're fixated on. And it's even more exciting because we've put in a physical barrier. Often when that replicates real life more. There's something I see, there's something I want, I can't physically access it. Self-control pays, and then not just self-control, but re-engaging and doing an activity pays even more. If that makes sense, if that's helpful, Susanna. I'm not sure if I'm just wittering on. Let me know if that's in any way helpful. But yeah, that would be it. I would try and do games where we're working on disengagement, like with the Plant Pot Prison game there that I just mentioned. Well, Plant Pot Prison style. For those who know what we're talking about, it's not exactly the same. And use movement to try and catch their eyes. But I think that's, you know, when life happens. Sometimes life happens, we can try and like avoid situations and stuff. And sometimes a dog will pop up, or a person will pop up. Or, you know, the most random things tend to pop up on my walks. I remember Arthur, we were walking him somewhere, and he suddenly like froze and stared. And I was like, what is he staring at? And for some reason in this high in this area. There were a load of like wooden like reindeer, like, you know, the kind that you have around Christmas time that you put on your front door maybe, or in your garden, and they were like in a huddle, and he was like, what is that, and just glared at it for ages, and it took me ages to register that's what he was glaring at. So sometimes it can be something absolutely random and you can't predict it. That's how I would maybe handle it in the moment. I don't tend to, where possible, I don't tend to say their name or try and get their attention too much, because it's an information gathering exercise that they're doing. And the fixated staring is, what is going to happen? What is going to happen if I stare at you? What's going to happen next? And sometimes it's better to interrupt, but in general, if you have the ability and the time, letting them sort of process it themselves, they're going to come back quicker next time. And I give, when I do that with Arthur, he'd get like a massive treat. I think I've said before, I carry my normal training treats, and then I carry my absolutely ridiculously huge, ooh, we've done something amazing training treats. You get them for naturally disengaging from things that he was fixated on, which when he was a puppy was like crows, and he really liked crows. It was crows before dogs, so I'm not sure what happened. Anyway, I'm wittering on, I think, now. I don't think I'm helping anyone. I think my puppy's like plotting in the background. Hi, you plotting? Yeah, he says I'm always plotting, but silently plotting, not talking about it. I see Arthur couldn't do that. Anyway, I'm wittering quite a lot, so I'm going to let you all go. If you have any questions, let me know. As I say, I'm sorting those classes and workshops and all sorts of bits and bobs, because I love reactive dogs, like in waking life, in real life, in person. That's what I'm going for. In person, I mainly work with reactivity cases. And if you follow the Wagging Wonders page, I should be putting up a video of a couple of my classes at the weekend. And they're very relaxed classes. You expect reactive dog classes to not be. They're very relaxed. My customers get good results, even if I say so myself. Anyway, I'm going to let you all go. Enjoy the rest of your evenings. If you have any questions, let me know. In the group, I'll pop up a sheet on reactivity, which I have, which is just probably a broad like recap of what we've talked about, and I will pop in when I remember a couple of those games that I just mentioned as well, and probably whatever else I remember that I said I would do. I promise I'll do it. My puppy says he needs a wee, I think, so I think I'm going to have to go. Thank you for joining, thank you for commenting. Any questions, any input, let me know. Otherwise, I'm going to let you all go. Bye, everyone. Thank you for joining.